Right now, as you watch this video, there's a prison in California where some of the most dangerous people in America are locked away. They're not getting out, ever. These aren't just criminals. Some are serial killers, people who took multiple lives one after another, without stopping. And some of them are in the same place, San Quentin State Prison. Today, we're going inside the minds and stories of 5 serial killers who are still alive, still breathing, still waiting on death row at San Quentin. If you're ready to dive into these dark, true stories, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below telling us where you're watching from. Let's get started. The first person on this list is Charles N.G. Should we call this guy a person? He literally built a dungeon just to murder people. Imagine being kidnapped and taken to a cabin in the middle of nowhere. No one knows where you are. No one is coming to save you. You're locked in a small room. And the people who took you, they're recording everything. That's what happened to at least 11 people in the 1980s. Charles N.G. didn't work alone. He had a partner named Leonard Lake. Together, they did something so evil, it's hard to believe it's real. In 1985, police found a remote cabin in Wilseyville, California. It was hidden deep in the woods. Inside, they discovered a nightmare. There were chains, handcuffs, a soundproof room, and videotapes that showed victims being tortured. Lake and Charles would kidnap men, women, and even children. They called their plan Operation Miranda. The idea was sick and twisted. They wanted to keep women as slaves in their hidden bunker. Anyone who resisted was killed. When the police closed in, Leonard Lake swallowed a cyanide pill and died. But Charles ran. He escaped to Canada. It took years to bring him back to the United States. When he finally went to trial, it became one of the longest and most expensive trials in California history. In 1999, N.G. was found guilty of 11 murders. The jury sentenced him to death. Today, he's still alive, locked away in San Quentin, waiting for an execution that may never come. What's truly chilling? Investigators believe the real number of victims could be much higher. Some say as many as 25 people may have died at that cabin. But without bodies, without proof, we'll never know for sure. Another serial killer in San Quentin Prison is Franklin Lynch, the day stalker. Most serial killers hunt at night. They hide in shadows. They wait until people are asleep. But not this guy. He killed during the day. In 1987, 3 elderly women were found dead in their homes in Northern California. All of them were strangled. All of them were alone, and all of them were attacked in broad daylight. That's why police called him the day stalker. Franklin Lynch targeted older women who lived by themselves. He would break into their homes, rob them, and kill them. There was no mercy, no hesitation. But here's the mystery. Police think Lynch didn't just kill 3 women. They believe he may have killed as many as 13. Why? Because there were other cases, other elderly women who died in similar ways around the same time. The methods were too similar to ignore. But there wasn't enough evidence to charge him with all of them. In 1988, Lynch was convicted of 3 murders and sentenced to death. He's been sitting on death row at San Quentin ever since. To this day, families of those other victims wonder, did Franklin Lynch kill their loved ones too? Will they ever get answers? If you're finding these stories as gripping as we are, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode like this. The 3rd serial killer on this list is Charles Arnett Stevens, the I-580 killer. Picture this. You're driving down the highway. It's a normal day. You're heading to work or maybe going home. Suddenly, shots ring out. Glass shatters. Someone is shooting at cars randomly without reason. That's what happened on Interstate 580 in California in 1989. Charles Arnett Stevens went on a shooting spree that left 4 people dead and others wounded. He didn't know his victims. He just started shooting. Why? No one really knows. Some killers have a reason: revenge, anger, hatred. But Stevens? His motive remains a mystery. He just drove along the highway, and opened fire on innocent people. One of his victims was a woman driving to work. Another was a man just trying to get home to his family. They didn't do anything wrong. They were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Police caught Stevens after a witness saw him and reported his car. When they searched his vehicle, they found the murder weapon. The evidence was clear. Stevens was convicted and sentenced to death. He's now on death row at San Quentin, where he'll stay for the rest of his life. But the question remains, why did he do it? What was going through his mind that day? We may never know. Another one is Robert Edward Maury, the Tipster Killer. Imagine this. A woman is found dead, strangled. Police have no leads. Then, out of nowhere, they get a phone call. Someone gives them a tip, a clue about the murder. It helps them understand what happened. But here's the twist. The person calling in the tip, he's the killer. That's exactly what Robert Edward Maury did. In the mid-1980s, Maury strangled at least 3 women in California. After each murder, he would call the police and give them information. Not enough to get caught, just enough to mess with them. He wanted to feel powerful. He wanted to watch the police chase clues that he gave them. This is what made him so dangerous. He wasn't just a killer. He was playing a game, and the police were his toys. But eventually, his game came to an end. Investigators started to notice a pattern. The tips were too detailed. They were coming from someone who knew too much. They traced the calls, and they found Maury. When they arrested him, evidence linked him to the murders. He was convicted and sentenced to death. Today, he sits on death row at San Quentin, no longer able to play his sick game. But here's the scary part. How many other tips did he give? How many cases did he influence? Did he ever tip off police about crimes he didn't commit just to watch them run in circles? The full story may never be known. The last guy on the list is Joseph Michael Nissensohn, the cross-country killer. Some killers stay in one place, but Joseph Nissensohn? He traveled. He killed in California. He killed in Washington. And investigators believe there may be more victims scattered across the country. Nissensohn was convicted of at least 4 murders, but the true number is believed to be higher. He targeted vulnerable people, those who wouldn't be missed right away. Drifters, hitchhikers, people living on the edges of society. He moved from state to state, leaving bodies behind. For years, police didn't connect the dots. The murders were spread out. Different locations, different times. It wasn't until forensic evidence improved that investigators started linking cases together. When they finally caught him, they found a man who showed no emotion, no remorse. He talked about his crimes like he was talking about the weather. Nissensohn was sentenced to death in California and sent to San Quentin. He's still there today, locked in a cell, his past slowly being uncovered as cold cases get reopened. But the mystery remains. How many people did Joseph Nissensohn really kill? And are there still families out there waiting for answers about loved ones who disappeared years ago? These 5 men, Charles N.G. Franklin Lynch, Charles Arnett Stevens, Robert Edward Maury, and Joseph Michael Nissensohn, are all still alive. They're all on death row at San Quentin State Prison. Charles N.G. has been on death row since 1999. That's over 25 years. Franklin Lynch? Since 1988. That's more than 35 years. These men have spent decades in the same building, breathing the same air, eating the same food, waiting for an execution date that never comes. Why hasn't California executed anyone in so long? In 2006, a federal judge ruled that California's method of execution, lethal injection, might cause unnecessary pain. That's considered cruel and unusual punishment, which is against the law. So executions stopped. Then, in 2019, California's governor put an official moratorium on the death penalty. That means no one will be executed as long as he's in office. So what does that mean for the killers at San Quentin? It means they wait, and wait, and wait. Not all of San Quentin's serial killers are still alive. Some died before they could be executed, and their deaths brought up complicated feelings for the families of their victims. Take Lonnie Franklin Jr., for example. He was known as the Grim Sleeper because he killed women in Los Angeles over many years, then seemed to stop for a while, then started again. He was convicted of 10 murders, but police think he killed at least 25 women. Franklin was on death row at San Quentin, but in 2020, he was found dead in his cell. He died of natural causes. He was never executed. Some families felt cheated. They wanted to see him face justice. They wanted him to be held accountable in the way the court had decided. But instead, he just died. Another killer, Douglas Clark, was part of the Sunset Strip killers along with his girlfriend, Carol Bundy. Together, they killed at least 6 women in Los Angeles in 1980. Clark was sentenced to death and sent to San Quentin. He spent over 40 years on death row, and in 2023, he died of natural causes. Again, no execution, just death by old age. Some people say that's not justice. Others say death is death. It doesn't matter how it happens. But what about the families? What about the people who lost loved ones and waited decades to see the killer punished? How do they feel when the killer just dies quietly in his sleep? There's no easy answer. Here's a question that haunts everyone. Why do people become serial killers? Scientists, psychologists, and criminal experts have studied this for decades. And the truth is, there's no single answer. Some killers had terrible childhoods. They were abused, neglected, or hurt in ways most of us can't imagine. That trauma damaged their brains and changed how they see the world. But here's the thing. Lots of people have bad childhoods. Most of them don't become killers. So what's the difference? Some experts believe it's a combination of factors. Maybe someone is born with a brain that doesn't process emotions the same way. Then they grow up in a bad environment. The two things together create something dangerous. Other killers seem to have no excuse at all. They grew up in normal homes. They had opportunities. But something inside them was just broken. Charles Ng, for example, came from a wealthy family in Hong Kong. He wasn't poor. He wasn't abused in the traditional sense, but something in him was wired wrong. He enjoyed hurting people. He enjoyed control. And when he met Leonard Lake, someone who thought the same way, they fed off each other's evil. Psychologists call this folie à deux, which is a fancy French term meaning madness of two. It's when two people together become more dangerous than they would be alone. Franklin Lynch, on the other hand, seemed to kill for a simpler reason: greed. He wanted money, and elderly women who lived alone were easy targets. He showed no emotion during his trial, no tears, no regret, just cold silence. Charles Arnett Stevens remains the biggest mystery. Why did he shoot random people on the highway? Was he angry at the world? Did he just snap one day? We still don't know, and he's never really explained it. Robert Edward Maury was different. He killed because it made him feel powerful. Calling the police afterward wasn't just a game. It was proof that he was smarter than everyone else. Or at least that's what he thought. And Joseph Nissensohn? He's what experts call a predator. He looked for weak targets. People who wouldn't fight back. People who wouldn't be missed. He killed because it was easy. And because he could. The scary truth is this. We may never fully understand what makes someone become a serial killer. Even the killers themselves often can't explain it. One of the most haunting questions about these cases is this: did they kill more people than we know about? The answer is almost certainly yes. Charles Ng was convicted of 11 murders, but investigators believe the real number could be as high as 25. There were bone fragments found on the property that didn't match any known victims. There were belongings from people who were never identified. And there were gaps in Ng and Lake's timeline times when they could have killed others. But without bodies, without DNA, without proof, those cases remain unsolved mysteries. Franklin Lynch was convicted of 3 murders, but police suspected him in at least 10 more. Why? Because during the same time period, other elderly women in the same area died in the same way: strangled, robbed, alone. but the evidence wasn't strong enough to charge him. So those families never got justice. They never got answers. Joseph Nissensohn admitted to some killings, but investigators believe he killed in multiple states over many years. Some cases from the 1970s and 1980s are being looked at again with new technology. DNA testing that didn't exist back then can now link old evidence to suspects. Cold cases are being reopened, and Nissensohn's name keeps coming up. But here's the problem. Nissensohn has no reason to talk. He's already on death row. Confessing to more murders won't change his sentence. So why would he help investigators? Why would he give families closure? Some killers do confess later in life. They want to feel important again. They want attention. But others take their secrets to the grave. The final question. So what do we take away from all of this? These men are real. Their crimes are real. The pain they caused is real. But they're also a reminder of something important. Evil exists. It's not just in movies or books. It's real. And sometimes it lives right next door. Charles N.G. seemed like a regular guy to some people. Franklin Lynch didn't stand out in a crowd. Robert Maury was clever enough to fool police for a while. And Joseph Nissensohn moved through the country without raising alarms. That's what makes serial killers so terrifying. They don't always look like monsters. Sometimes they look like normal people. But inside San Quentin, they can't hide anymore. They can't pretend. They're surrounded by walls and guards and other criminals who know exactly what they did. And they'll stay there until the day they die. The victims are gone. The families are left with grief that never fully heals. And the killers? They wait in their cells with nothing but time and their own thoughts. Justice may be slow. It may be imperfect. But in the end, it caught up with them. And that's where their stories end, not in freedom, not in escape, but in a cell at San Quentin State Prison, where they'll remain until their final breath. Thank you for watching this deep dive into the serial killers of San Quentin. If this video impacted you, please like it, share it, and subscribe for more true crime stories. And remember, the victims' names and lives matter more than the killers ever will. Stay safe out there.